Hey everyone, thanks for joining us for today's session, PL-300, Modeling Data Using Power BI. My name's Anna. I'm an event planner for Reactor, joining you from Redmond, Washington. Before we start, I do have some quick housekeeping. Please take a moment to read our code of conduct. We seek to provide a respectful environment for both our audience and presenters. While we absolutely encourage engagement in the chat, we ask that you please be mindful of your commentary, remain professional and on topic. Keep an eye on that chat. We'll be dropping helpful links and checking for questions for our moderators to answer. Our session is recorded. It will be available to view on demand within 24 hours right here on the Microsoft Reactor channel. With that, I'd love to turn it over to our speakers today. Gaston and Javier, thank you so much for joining.
Hello, hello. Thank you for joining us today. It's a pleasure for me and for Gaston here, my co-host today, to be here to discuss about this beautiful topic, quite interesting, actually. So super excited to be here. Gaston, how are you? How are you doing?
Okay, long time not to see you, Javi.
Yeah, it's been a while. It's been a while, actually. By the way, nice t-shirt, huh?
Oh yeah, we got the memo. We got the memo. This is an old school 5 years for Power BI, and we
Yeah,
are
yeah.
almost 10 years right now, celebrating
Oh,
another
yeah,
birthday.
yeah. We're gonna talk about that, right? We're gonna be celebrating beside learning, correct?
Exactly. So, quick introduction from my end. Gaston Cruz here, Microsoft Data Platform MVP. I'm Senior Director for Slalom here in the States, running a global team of different data analysts and all our data platform. In my case, I've been doing data platform, projects for quite some time as an architect, as a Power BI developer. I've been running in Power BI since kind of the inception of the platform itself. I've been running Power BI dashboards and dashboards in a day for a long time when I was in back in Uruguay, kind of when I met Javier, running some sessions back there in South America. So happy to be here again. So happy to share with the community, and let's try to prepare all ourselves for the PL-300 exam. So switching back to you, Javi.
Excellent. Thank you, Gaston. A little bit about myself. My name is Javier Villegas. I am from Buenos Aires, Argentina. I am Data Platform MVP since 9 years, and I'm also IT Director in the DBA and BI services area at the Mediterranean Shipping Company. Been involved with the Microsoft Data Platform mainly for over 30 years, and now having some fun with Fabric, and since a little while with Power BI as well. So, Gaston, after the introduction, why don't we move on?
Yeah, of course.
Here this is an interactive session. We have our moderators that we're gonna name them in a bit. So please be kind, say hi to everyone, and please ask all the questions you have. This is the right place, the right time for us to have fun and to learn in the meantime. Our moderators, we have Anupna and Martin. I have the pleasure to meet them before, both of them. So it's nice to have them with us. So they will be the one answering most of your questions through the chat in YouTube, in LinkedIn. We've been told that we are streaming directly to LinkedIn as well. So super good. So please get in touch with the moderators and ask all your questions. So thank you guys for being here. All right, Gaston, I heard there is a secret that we have. Have you heard something?
No, I cannot say that. I cannot say anything.
Come on. I mean, I've been told the whole week about this secret, and I'm so excited. I really, really want to share this with our broad audience today.
Well, Javi, for this time, go ahead then.
All right, so we have a celebration. We have a birthday, right? Our beloved Power BI is turning 10 years. Gaston, can you believe that 10 years already? How you got involved, or even better, what was you doing 10 years ago when Power BI show up in the industry,
So
disrupting the
I
industry,
yeah I
actually?
spent a lot of time at that time, Javi, training a bunch of financial people in making that switch between doing Excel and making the switch between Excel and the understanding of Power BI, because they were all the time thinking, hey, why I should be leaving Excel and going into this new tool or this new platform. So there was a whole explanation on, hey, what is coming, what keep all of us excited about Power BI, and what is the difference, because the main pitch at that time was, hey, Power BI is not coming to replace Excel. It's kind of a really great company for Excel. And now we are here 10 years after
10
that
years
news.
after,
Yeah.
right? I had the pleasure to be an early adopter and a tester, right? Back in the days, we got in touch with Microsoft through my company, and they told us, hey, we have this thing called Power Query, so M language, those kind of things. And we said, what is that? Is this something that comes to replace uh, or compete with reporting services, or what? And well, we know, and we all know what happened right after, right? We know the rest of the story. So it's a good time to celebrate. 10 years, of course, is something to be super proud of. Microsoft and Power BI is, always at the top of the Gartner quadrant in terms of analytics, right? And Power BI is a key piece of that. So please join us with the celebration, right? You have the QR code over there, aka.ms/PBI10, right? There's gonna be a celebration. So come join us and celebrate us together. All right. So since we are celebrating, why we cannot give some gift away, right, Gaston?
That's right. That's right.
So we have some discounts to share with all of you. Actually, there is a 50% discount for two exams. The one that we're talking today, PL-300, right? The one that we will be covering, and also for the DP-600, the one for Microsoft Fabric. So please hurry up, because there is an expiration date, right? End of August expire. So go scan the link. You're going to have this 50% discount to take your certification exam. What else do we have? We also have a context, right? Uh, data visualization, June 24. This is a very nice initiative. Uh, Remind me, Gaston, is this the first time or the second time? No, it's the first time of database, right? The database context.
We had one that was
There was one.
amazing in the Fabric conference this year in Vegas, and that was amazing. The finalists, they were there in live
They were
doing
live at stage, right?
doing the last milestone, and that was amazing. Yeah, the whole community was there. Lot of round of applause in terms of what they deliver at that time. So that was really great.
So this one is going to be virtual then. The idea is for, well, first of all, for you to register using this QR code or the link that we have there. And the idea is to submit your Power BI visuals. I mean, what we are trying to get here is the best visual that we can have with Power BI, right? So you can choose your source, you can do your magic with Power BI, and definitely come up with a great visual. I remember, Gaston, back in the days when we have all those back then were weird visuals in where we have remembered the aquarium with the fishes and the sizes and those kind of, and that was wow. I know that now we have way better improvement in terms of visuals, right? We can even chat with Power BI with Copilot, right? But anyway, it's a really nice context if you're really interested on June 24th, get registered with this QR code and enjoy the experience. All right. So we also have another initiative, which is the Fabric super users. Which are the Fabric super users? Well, mainly people who loves Fabric, who loves Power BI, and also loves community, right? You may know one or two, right, Gaston?
Some of them.
So if you are involved with Fabric in your day-to-day work as a, enthusiast student doing your POC, and you have something to give back to the community, right? Join the Fabric super user, event. What is that? Write a post, publish some demos, write some, documentation, videos, short videos. If you have something that you believe is good for you and help to solve a particular problem that you may have, and that thing you believe that will be super useful for somebody else, don't doubt it. Do it in the way you want, right? With the post, with the video, with the book, right? So that's how to get involved with community, and you can become the hero of our community Fabric super user, right? So we invite you to join the Fabric super user experience. All right, and what do we have here, Gaston? We have our second annual Microsoft Community Conference in Europe, right? We know there were two in US, right? Last year and this year in Vegas, right? Last year it was in Stockholm, and now in between September 15 through 18, there is the second annual edition of the FabCom Europe, right? Here we have a discount code FabLive, right? That you can save 200 euros if you use it, right? So if you are interested in joining the community Microsoft experts to learn all about the news and what is coming into Fabric, see other customer how they are using, get network with them, with peers, with MVPs. This is definitely the place to go. So aka.ms/fc, that stands for Fabric Conference Vienna, or scan the QR code, use the discount code, and definitely see you there. Just a spoiler alert, Gaston and myself, we're going to be there delivering a session in person. So super excited to be there. All right. So let's start with the content, right? Proper content. As all the previous initiative that Microsoft Reactor is having, this is a series of sessions, right? It's not just one session that we go there, we deliver, and boom, it's done. No, it's actually a series, right? So in this case, there are 5 different sessions. This is the second one in where we're going to be talking about model data using Power BI. There was one a week ago prepare data using Power BI. And now we're going to go a step further to start digging into data modeling using Power BI, right? So stand with us today for this second session, right? And definitely we invite you to follow the whole series, right? At the end of the series, you're gonna be a step closer to be able to get your PL-300 exam to get your Power BI data analysis certification. Mhm. All right, so let's try to get certified PL-300 Power BI data analyst.
Let's go for it. So, the session for today, the main topic is model your data. So, we are going to be focusing exactly on this topic. Remember that in the exam, there are several topics that you can learn in terms of the Power BI lifecycle management. Today, we are going to be covering the modeling of the data. That means that we are going to be covering exactly the details around the exam. PL-300, what are those metrics and the insights around the exam? We are going to be talking about the design and implementation of what it's going to look like to create or develop a data model. What is DAX? What are the model calculations behind the scenes to adapt that business logic and uh, involve and develop them in our model creation or semantic model creations? We are going to be checking about the optimization tools to optimize the performance of our model. And then at the end, we are going to be giving a little bit of practical tips and tricks in terms of how to answer what is going to be the structure of the exam itself. So that being said, today covering exam PL-300, this is focusing on Power BI only. We are going to be talking about data modeling, so things. Within the PL-300, there's a role-based certification. So when we are talking about PL-300, we are specifically talking about this role and persona that is the Power BI Data Analyst. If we are talking about the DP600, that in the past with Javier, we delivered some of the sessions in that series about DP600, that is a more fabric analytics engineer. So that is a little bit more the scope of the whole fabric environment, the whole fabric as a unified data platform solution. And then also with Javier, we deliver just few sessions on the DP700. The DP700, the main topic and the main role and persona is the fabric data engineer. That is more specific to data ingestion, real-time intelligence, lakehouse, data warehouse, what is an event house, how to create notebooks, what are the options in terms of ingesting data, notebooks versus data flows versus data pipelines, and giving a little bit of a deep dive into the whole platform itself that is Microsoft Fabric. Today, as we mentioned before, the role base is going to be focusing on the Power BI as a data analyst itself. Remember that you can check all the episodes of this series to catch up on every single bucket of the life cycle management in the Power BI space. The level of this exam PL-300 is an intermediate level. As you can see here, you need to provide some meaningful business value, and this is the candidate of this is a Power BI data analyst. And the main goal here is understanding how to prepare the data, how to get the data, because without data you cannot model the data. So you are going to be talking about ingestion of the data, then what is the modeling of the data, and then the last mile is how you can visualize what are the storytelling options in terms of visualizations and analysis of the data. And the last milestone is understanding how to manage and secure the data in Power BI. Couple of things that they are really important for the PL-300. You need to check everything around Power Query, that is the ingestion uh, programming language for Power BI, and then you need to understand DAX, that is the data analysis expression. We are going to be covering that in details within this series, but be aware that you need to practice and be hands-on in terms of Power Query as a programming language, and data analysis expressions for DAX, understanding the business logic and how to implement that business logic within Power BI.
And Gaston, here the prepare part was covered in the previous session. Today we go to the modeling one. The next one is visualize and analyze, and I mean there are five. So the fourth is the one for managing and security, but the last one is just for Q&A on the exam Excel. So each of the sessions that we are delivering here, Reactor and Microsoft is delivering here, will cover each of these buckets, right? Today, we will cover modeling using Power BI.
Exactly. And you can check the percentage that Microsoft gives to each of the pieces. You see that the preparation of the data is going to be 25-30% of your exam, everything around the get the data, profile and clean the data, transforming the data, everything around Power Query itself for the ingestion of the data. Today, as Javier mentioned, we are talking about the model of the data using Power BI, and that means, hey, how I can implement in the right way the semantic model, how I can design that semantic model, then the model calculations using DAX and understanding what are the options in DAX to create those measures, and then how to optimize, because you need to think that, hey, maybe I am starting with this measure in Power BI Desktop. That's the place that usually you are creating your measures, but after the creation, you need to get the performance. What is the performance out of those measures that you're creating so far? This third piece here is the visualization of the data, how to create, how to enhance the reports, how to identify the patterns and trends. That is also at 25-30% for the exam. And the last milestone is how to manage and secure Power BI, how to create workspace, how to secure access to the data, and how to apply a governance strategy or patterns around the Power BI items. So, Power BI overview. We are going to be, first of all, setting up some context here. Within Fabric as a unified platform, you have all these packets, all these workloads. So within Fabric, Power BI is one of the big members of the Fabric family. As you can see here, Power BI is one bucket, is one of the workloads, but you have almost 6 different workloads coming together. Data Factory for the ingestion pattern, the data engineer that is all around notebooks and lake houses, data warehouse for the structured data scientist for all about calling AutoML and machine learning models, real-time intelligence, and then in the backend you have one lake as a one single framework where you land the data. So that is about setting up the context that Power BI is not isolated from Fabric. Power BI is a big member of the Fabric unified solution here.
It's actually one of the key members, I would say, right? Because
exactly.
we see the whole thing as an analytical platform in where we ingest the data, we store and process, then we have to visualize, right? We started with Power BI and then we added all the other components, now building this foundation called Microsoft Fabric. So definitely, if you are coming from Power BI, you have a couple of miles already done with the Fabric, right?
Exactly. And this screen remind me when we start the overall process, kind of 10 years back, where we sit down with a lot of community members and explain that Power BI itself has multiple components in terms of how you start with the life cycle management of any reporting that you're creating from scratch. You are, first of all, getting the connections to all the data sources that you need to put in place. Maybe you are starting with a CSV file or an Excel file, or today we have more than 200 services, some of them on premises, some of them in the cloud, multiple system with Microsoft family and outside the Microsoft family, so you can get connected and create your reports in top of any data
You
outside
can get
the scope. Yeah,
relational
yeah,
data, you can get non-relational data, like document, you can get semi-structured data like JSON file. So, you can ingest almost anything, right? Microsoft, not Microsoft, cloud
yeah.
native, on-premise, so you choose.
Uh, Power BI Desktop is it was a great tool 10 years back, and is still there,
Still,
and is still free. Remember that you can download Power BI Desktop in your computer. You can download that 100% for free. So that means that you can start downloading your Power BI desktop and start working and be hands on in Power BI without any other need. You need just the Power BI desktop session, download that version, start getting data from Excel, CSV file, JSON file, documents, whatever content you might have, and start playing around with that data, modeling the data, and then after that you can of course publish into the service. You can even access that via mobile and download in any mobile the native component of the mobile services, and you can start playing around exactly with this tool from the scratch. The first recommendation is like that, is starting playing around with the tool to start familiarizing with all the components of Power BI. So design and implement a data model. Where to start? I love this image. I use this image a
is
lot
the
of
key
times.
for everything, right?
Exactly, exactly. This is a key component of understanding data modeling from scratch. So when you're working in any data within any framework, and doesn't matter if you're playing around with an Excel file or CSV file or a SharePoint list or whatever component you have, you're going to be getting data from one or two or multiple sources. After you get the data, something that is a key element here is understanding the data that you're working with. And understanding that data, that means that you can have multiple dimensional tables in your model. You can have one or more fact tables in that model. But the important thing around this is how you're going to be interconnecting all these tables together. When I'm talking about dimensional tables, we can talk about date table, for example, countries, states. Those are dimensional tables because that is meaningful for your data model to identify one of the slicing of the data. So when you are thinking
So,
about how to
Gaston,
slice the
so
data, that's the component. Yeah, Javi.
what you are saying is that we have to forget a little bit about those white tables in where we have all the information repeated in there, and do some sort of standardization of the things, just having the dimension, having the fact tables, and with relationship. Is that what you are saying?
Exactly, exactly. And remember that this is a really great component and really a tip for the exam is that if you understand how to model the data, you're gonna be ahead of this game because the database piece of Power BI is really important. But I really love that analogy of the iceberg where you see the top of the iceberg, but there's a major component that is the bottom of the iceberg. That is the data modeling piece. You need to be sure that you understand the data and how the data is related between each other. When we are talking about the fact table, it's all around the transactions of your model. So every time you are thinking a fact table, you are thinking about transactions within your model. And when you're talking about dimensions, we are talking about, for example, elements on that data model itself. So yeah,
Let me add something quickly, Gaston. Here, if you want to learn more about the star schema, right? This kind of modeling, definitely go look for any of the Kimball books, right? This is the key of the data modeling and the star schema, right? This is the starting point, right? go for it if you
Exactly,
want to learn more.
exactly, exactly. That's key element. So one of the things that I would love to record from this slide, you can see exactly what we were discussing before when we are talking about dimension tables, like the date table in this screen is related to the orders table. My orders table is a transaction table in my model. And you can see one of the key components of the data modeling side of things. That is the dimensions and how the dimensions connect to the transactional or the fact table. You can see that what is this one and what is this asterisk? Come on, Javi, you are the SQL guy. What is the one and asterisk?
I never seen that before. No, those are relationships, right? This is how we build the connection between tables, right? The famous foreign keys, right? How you will relate your dimension tables with your fact tables, right? We have more insight on how to do this relationship, but something that is super important here when you are modeling the data that you gather from multiple sources, as Gaston just said, right? There are a couple of things that we need to bear in mind, right? First of all, it's super important to set correctly the data types, right? We can come up with dates and maybe at the source, because we gathered it from a CSV file, it's set as text, right? Take your time to set the correct data type, the integer numbers or any values, just put the correct data type. With that, you will gain, you will score one more goal here at the match, right? Because then when you start doing your troubleshooting on why my visuals are going slow, why my model is not behaving as expected, right? One of the I mean, not everything, but definitely one of the things to consider is data types, right? Um,
Yeah, and
Also,
it's all about managing the model in the right way, and
mhm,
you mentioned something that it was kind of a key element here, understanding what should be your primary key in each table, what should
in
be
each of
your
the table.
secondary key
Yeah.
in your uh, in your table. That is a key element, and uh, Kevin just asked a really great question. You know that you faced that before in SQL. I am sure about that, Javi. What you need to do if you don't have that key that is specific. What if you don't have the primary key or the secondary key? You need to find the way to come around that. Right?
Mhm. No, absolutely. That's the key. And if you don't find it, is maybe because you don't need it, right? So that is the part of the modeling. Now, it's a little bit of joke and a little bit serious, right? When we talk about this modeling, we definitely need to pick and choose the column that we really need, right? Because
Yep.
it's easier to say, okay, I got my Excel file, my CSV, or my full table from SQL Server, and I gather all, and I will use all the columns for creating my star schema. Maybe there are some of those columns that are really not necessary, right?
Exactly.
And
Exactly.
my key advice here from this list is definitely add the description when you are documenting your model, because maybe you are working today on it, you are building the architecture, etc. You have it so fresh in your head, you know what you're talking about, you know what this relationship is between this column and this column on table A and table B, etc. But believe me, in few weeks you're going to forget about that, right? When you are troubleshooting a performance issue here, say, oh, what was relationship was. So you can definitely spend some time here on documenting with adding the description.
Exactly. And there's a couple of tips and tricks that can play around with the exam as well. That in the right you can see these kind of icons that you showed in the order date and order ID. What this means, those icons, that you can hide unnecessary columns from the business user. So you don't need all the columns to show up in the model itself. You can hide some of those columns because could be confusing having kind of bunch of tables with bunch of columns and you expose everything to the business user. So try to expose only what you need. And more about that, actually, if you can go back and say, hey, do I really need all these 200 columns from this table, or I need only these 10 columns in this specific report? So be careful in terms of what you are bringing to your data model, because in the field experience, what I notice sometimes when I start checking on some of the models and clients are asking, hey, Gaston, why is kind of poor performance around my model? Sometimes it's because we are bringing all together, knowing or checking or thinking that we are going to be using all together in our reports. And sometimes you're bringing models with more than 200, 300 tables with bunch of columns. And then when we specifically do the performance of the model, we notice that, hey, you are using only 10% of the columns of all the tables that you're bringing in. So the very first step in performing or getting a better performance on your data model is exactly that, is trying to avoid getting everything to your data model. Regarding the descriptions to the documentation, something that works really great for me today is leveraging Copilot all over the place.
all,
I've been
all the
using
time.
Copilot. I've been using Copilot, for example, to document the measures that we are bringing to the data model. I've been using the Copilot experience to get all the steps in my Power Query where we are getting the data and preparing the data of your data model. So be sure that you leverage those kind of tools because they are really important to keep our models up to date.
And this is definitely an important point, Gaston, when we do this data cleaning, data standardization, to be able to achieve a good performance at the end of the day. And with that, we definitely gonna have to write less DAX code, right? And we're gonna
Yeah.
go avoid bunch of errors.
And we were talking about this, the configuration of the relationships. This is something that takes time to go and manage all the relationships of the model, but this is a key element to get not only the best performance, also to get the best outcomes of your reporting layer. Because if you figure out the right relationship between, in this case, dimensional tables and fact table, you're going to be ending up with less business logic for your data model. When we were talking about the data model itself and the DAX experience, it's really important to understand the logic and the relationship between all the data model. As you can see in the left of my screen, all the dimensional tables that we have and all the relationships that we have in our model and which one are related with the other. Remember that usually we will be talking about one to many relationship, like one employee can appears in multiple factory reseller sales, but you can have one to one relationship as well. You can have many to many relationships. The advice here is, if you are bringing a data model with many to many relationships, try to think a little bit more about it, because sometimes you can break that down in many to one and one to many relationship if you split that relationship in multiple tables. That is a key
And a
element to
key
understand the
thing,
performance.
and let me add something to what you just said, Gaston. The cardinality is important, right? So if we're gonna have multiple configurations, combinations, sorry, for the one to many or many to many, that's gonna end up maybe having some performance problems. So when we pick and choose the relationships and the directions and the configuration, one to one to many, many to many, uh, I would say that, I mean, we just said that everything is important till now. Well, this one is also super important, if it is not the most.
Yeah, exactly, Javi. Let's go to the next one. And one of the great things here to share about the data modeling is thinking all the time to create a common date table for your model. This is a key element for all your models. Sometimes the date table is just a common table, and you can go to Power Query. Even you can go to Copilot and ask, hey, Copilot, I need a common data table for my data model. Sometimes you can go a little bit deep on that common data table, because let's say that your company end up your fiscal year June 30 or November 30, and you want a common data table that allow you to slice the data by your fiscal year. You can go to Copilot and ask, hey, I need a Power Query statement to create a common data table for my company fiscal year with all the breakdowns. You can do that, and you can start from there. So it's really important to understand that that is available. And one of the key elements here, and one key advice, is push all the logic as much as you can to the upstream. That means that if you are willing to create this table can live directly in your Power Query. But if you have a friend like Javier, I can go and say, hey Javier, can you create me that table in your SQL server? Because I would love to get the data directly from that common date table in the SQL server. So, and why is that? Because remember that in Power BI, all the logic lives directly in the engine of Power BI. If I can push that logic directly to the date stream or the data source, I can get even better performance for my business users. So remember that, and all the time, if you can push that kind of logic to your data source, is even better. Calculations with DAX. Let's tackle down on this topic. So, what is DAX? DAX is a programming language that is data analysis expression. All these DAX and business logic lives in your data model, but you're not persistent the calculation, because the calculations go directly in memory. So every single measure is calculated on the fly. So when you create a new measure, like in this case, total quantity, it's not like I'm calculating this total quantity and I persist this in the model. I am creating this measure, and this measure is going to react or be calculated in the fly when you are creating visuals in your report. So let's say that I'm dropping a date table, or I am dropping a country table. The total quantity is going to be leveraging that calculation with the context. So in our case, it's going to be calculating the total quantity by country, or by date, or by year, or by month, based on the context of where I'm using that measure. So that is living directly and calculating everything in memory. There's a library of functions and operators that you can use for the DAX statement. You can use different build formulas and expressions. There's a whole library of different expressions that you can use to write DAX. Of course, you have a DAX viewer, and you can leverage Copilot to make that happen. So if you have the business understanding, the business context, you can operate and say, hey, Copilot, I need a new measure to do the year over year calculation for my sales. And Copilot is going to be analyzing your model, and it's going to help you to write that DAX statement. But what is really important to know is that Copilot is not going to be doing magic if you are not doing whatever we mentioned before in terms of operating or working with your data model. All the tips and tricks that we just gave with Javier before, working on your primary key, foreign key, relationships, data types. You need to work on your data model before start working or leveraging Copilot to create DAX statements. So what is going to like to create basic measures? For the basic measures, you can see here that you need just a statement that is the name of the measure. In this case, is states, and then you need the function that you're going to be leveraging. In this case, distinct count. So distinct count is the built-in uh, built-in function. You use totals, average, counts, you name it. There's a lot of different functions out of the box that you can use. These calculations, as I mentioned before, is compute on the fly. It's not persistent in your data model. So you're not storing any data in your data model when you are creating a new measure. And all the time you are creating the measure with the name of the measure and then equal the function and the context of that measure. Interesting is this case, and today I was checking the previous session and I fixed one of the the years here in this statement because it was 2025 and we were talking about 2015 in this case. But you can check the name of this measure and how the measure is getting the context on this one, because we are using a built-in function that is calculate. But calculate is really interesting as a measure and as a built-in function, because when you add the calculate, then in this case we are summarizing the total price for the sales. But then we are giving the context for that measure, because we are saying, hey, I would love to summarize total price, but only for sales in which the order date is 2015. So we are giving a filter context for that measure. So this is amazing because the calculate allow you to create the measure, giving the right calculation to that measure. But again, you are giving a context on what is the filter that you're going to be leveraged to set up that control or enabling that control in the context of your measure. So pretty interesting what you can do. And this is just an example of what is the art of possible. I totally recommend going to Microsoft Learn and check for DAX, because you have a whole course in DAX on how to write DAX from scratch. Some of the time intelligence as well, you can use functions like year to date, last year, and you can compare performance over time between measures. It's important that you have your date table to make this happen, because it's really important that you have a common date table to keep adding. Use functions like the last date or closing balance year to get that kind of snapshot of values. This is great to get financial, supply chain, and reporting that all the time. Our business stakeholders, they are asking, hey, I would love to set up the stage to see the sales this year in comparison for the last year, but I would love a dynamic moving calculation. I want, if today is June 18, 2025, I would love to compare exactly with 12 months between my current date. That is perfect for time intelligence calculations. And you can see here how that goes, because in this case, I'm creating a measure with revenue year to date, and the function itself of total year to date allow me to get the revenue calculation and then setting up the context of that date. So it's getting every single month and it's calculating on the fly. You can see that every single year, and doesn't matter if I am using the year 2018 or 2020 or 2025. The measure itself is going to calculate the revenue year to date, setting up the context of where I'm using that measure itself. The other big topic here, the calculation groups. You can create calculation groups in Power BI that allow you to have all the calculation items within your group. In this case, for example, I am talking about the calculation of the year over year, and I would love to set up the stage for the percentage of year over year. That calculation items allow me to say, hey, I would love to break this down and break this calculation in month to date, quarter to date, year to date, previous year, and all the breakdowns. So I don't need to create or develop all the measures for the time intelligence. Only with one measure is going to be allowing me to do all the calculation groups at once. So that simplify the overall process of experience writing the DAX statements. What is going to look like for transform and load your data in your data model? Couple of things, why you should be aware of the performance within your semantic models. First of all, the semantic models are the way that you can perform within your report itself. So all the insights around, hey, I need to clean up my model because I know that within this table I have almost 100 columns and I'm only using maybe 10 columns. So that is specifically important to clean the models and reduce the memory usage. The optimization is going to improve overall the usability of your model. Remember that you can certify your semantic model. So what does it mean? That when you certify your model, everyone in your organization can use and leverage that model. So that is going to be speed up the process of usability across different business units. The other big topic here is the importance of choosing the right storage mode. Remember that you can cache in memory, that is the import mode. You can cache in memory all the semantic model itself. You can use data query. That means that it's going to go back and forth to your data source. Sometimes it's an interesting option, but remember that hitting the data query is hitting the data source all the time, even if you are slicing the data in your report. So be careful about that. The composite is a mixing between, hey, I need these tables to go, maybe dimensions tables that are quite small. You capture everything in memory, and then the fact table or transactional table, that is where you have data query. So if you're combining data query and import, that means that you are building a composite model. Some of the tables are going to be cached in memory. Some of the tables are going to be hitting the data source itself. So that means that you can create that experience for the business users. Every single model supports all the Power BI, Excel, and passionate reports that support better decision making. So you need to be careful in terms of who are going to be your end users of the model, because perhaps I build in the semantic model and then maybe Javier is using Excel to link my semantic model and to use my semantic model to create Excel reports directly. Couple of things around this. Choosing the right storage mode, as we mentioned before. Remember to remove any rows or any columns that you are not using. And there's a lot of great tools from the community itself to get those insights from getting better performance. You can use performance analyzer, you can use DAX query view to find those kind of bottlenecks. You need to reduce in some way the granularity of the data that is not needed for your semantic model, and always try to improve. In my case, it's been really great to see many of my clients doing office hours just to once a month they get all the certified semantic models, and they review each of them and see, hey, how we can optimize those models. So that is a really good practice. Good practice, because there's always ways to improve the overall performance of our models. Some of the optimization tools that we mentioned before, you can start with performance analyzers. That is totally out of the box. Every time you download the Power BI desktop experience, you have that optimized tab in the top of your screen, you have the performance analyzer, and you can see exactly what is the time, what are the milliseconds that every single report, every single visual takes to load the report itself. So you can say, hey, how much time is taking that this DAX query? How much time is taking to load this visual display? How much take is taking every single visual? And you can see that in the right of my screen, you can see that breakdown by button, by image, by visual itself. So you can go really granular to understand your performance. And you can have a bunch of external tools like DAX Studio is amazing. Tabular Editor with Best Practice Analyzer, Bravo for Power BI, all of them, they are really great tools to enhance the experience and to improve the performance overall of your semantic models. As you can see here, some of the optimization tools in place. Uh, we are using, in this case, all the definition of the measures, and you can improve with this experience overall your performance within your semantic models. Some of the quick tips, because we are almost at the time right now, but some of the quick tips for the exams. First of all, as we mentioned before, I love to engage people and say, hey, go with your data, go with data that you love. With Javier, we love soccer. So it's going to be a really great practice for Javier and me to get data from any website that have all the reports around soccer and start playing with that data, because that's going to be an amazing experience for us, because we know the data, we understand the data, and then we are going to be working with modeling and preparation of the data that we all know, and we are going to be having an experience end to end to build those kind of reports. So first of all, tips and tricks: be hands-on, download the Power BI desktop, go and prepare, get the data, go to the whole lifecycle management, prepare data, getting data, modeling the data, create your primary key, foreign key, doing the relationships, and go ahead and define that process. Going with the study guides and resources, practice
There are
tests,
plenty of this, right?
lot of
We
resources.
have, I mean, in terms of resources, Microsoft and the community is pushing a lot of information, tools, videos, documents, blogs. So definitely you should take advantage of those. And also Microsoft is giving us the possibility to do a mock-up, to try the exam, right? It's going to be a similar exam to the one that you're going to do the day of the real exam, but you're going to be able to practice the type of questions, the scenarios, etc., etc. By the way, there's going to be one session regarding specifically on that. Then, of course, Microsoft Learn, right? Microsoft Learn is, the starting point for learning any Microsoft technology, and Power BI, the PL-300 is not the exception. So you should start from there, right? And then, as Gaston said, start building your own projects with your own data. Luckily, for my team, my soccer team, there is a lot of data from his team that are not too much or not too good. But anyway, you got the point.
Exactly. And Microsoft Learn is keep updating all the time. Someone was asking the question around if there was any tips and tricks on Copilot on Power BI. Check it out, because I think was few days
It's
back they
full,
released they
full.
released the Power BI Copilot training, so you can check that out, and it's amazing. So can't miss opportunities, as Javier mentioned at the beginning of our session. Remember that there's multiple opportunities to engage with the community. There's a Power BI 10 anniversary birthday party. There's a 50% discount on this exam PL-300. Remember to become a Fabric user and share your knowledge with our community, and sign up with the database contest that is coming as an amazing contest to learn and learn more around Power BI. All that QR, you can use the QR code to sign up to every single of those new activities. Remember that this is a series. The next June 25th, 26th is going to be about visualization and analyze data using Power BI. So this is great to catch up on the next topic to prepare to the PL-300. Be ready to go. All these series are recorded, so you can check this out live, of course, and interact with all of us and the moderators like Martin and Anupama. But you can check the recording later, anytime.
Tom, we have learned a lot today, right? Amazing how much we were able to pack in 1 hour. Well, definitely, we have seen a lot of questions, good questions going on. The moderators doing a great job. So thank you for that. Use this code. You can have this as a starting point to prepare for your certification. And hey, Gaston, glad to be here with you again today. uh, you know, keep pushing and, encourage everyone to go for the PL 300 exam. And of course, continue with this series.
Again, a pleasure to share this session with you, Javier, and with all the community back here. Thanks to our moderators, thanks to Shannon, and to all that been there, and getting a lot of questions, a lot of great insights. So thank you all. Thanks for the community, and see you soon.
Thank you all for joining, and thank you to our speakers. This session is a part of a series. To register for future shows and watch past episodes on demand, you can follow the link on the screen or in the chat. We're always looking to improve our sessions and your experience. If you have any feedback for us, we would love to hear what you have to say. You can find that link on the screen or in the chat. We'll see you at the next one.